Right, let's get into today's podcast then. Loads of managerial changes, but one club who certainly won't be looking to make a change is Lincoln City, who are flying high in League One. A defeat yesterday, though. Their manager, Michael Appleton, will be the main subject of today's podcast. And first of all, Mike, just want to go back a few years and look at sort of his trajectory. He burst onto the scene very early, didn't he? And he was very much hyped. He was, highly rated. Lots of people who'd worked with him talked, in glowing terms about Appleton. But then I suspect he probably chose a few bad roles and had to kind of almost start again.
Yeah, it was very much coloured his career at the beginning. I think, like you say, he came from behind the scenes at West Brom, and he's a very intelligent manager, knows his own mind, has very clear ideas about the way the game should be played and things like that. And obviously, there was a lot of goodwill for him, for people that had interacted with him behind the scenes and thought he was destined to be, the next big thing. We've obviously seen a lot of managers come through now. We've got all the coaching courses in St. George's Park and all these different managers from different backgrounds. Appleton was kind of an early mover in that sense. But his first few jobs, yeah, absolutely. He walked from one crisis club to another, and he got his career off on the wrong foot. It was, he even admitted himself that it was possibly a conversation he had with Sir Alex Ferguson in the end that, made him think about the jobs he was going to take going forward, because, it's almost like Ferguson pulled him aside, and sort of got in touch with him and said, listen, you need to be careful because there's only so many chances you'll get. But in recent years, the Oxford job was the turnaround. He went to Oxford, did a fantastic job there. And ever since now, we kind of, he is a manager with a proven track record. He is someone who's very well respected and now has measuring up to that potential that everybody talks about in the early days.
Yeah, good to see him turn it around. So one of the reasons, I guess, that we are focused on Michael Appleton is not just because his side are flying high at the top of League One, but also because he was kind of in the headlines recently for being linked with the Bristol City job, wasn't he? We talked already about Nigel Pearson eventually getting that role, but you spoke there about how Bristol City should have probably or could have made a more progressive appointment, and Appleton would have fitted that bill. But I guess they were never really after him in the end, were they?
Yeah, no, not from what I can gather. It seemed like the conversations were, the moment Dean Holden went, they already had their minds fixed, I think, on the type of manager they wanted. And they wanted a safe pair of hands, I think, because Dean Holden was so inexperienced and they'd seen what they'd made him as a mistake. They wanted the exact opposite. It's what a lot of clubs do, is they swing from one extreme to the other. And what went wrong in the last, with the last manager, we'll go for experience this time. But no, I think Appleton is exactly the type of innovative manager I was thinking of when you talk about. It was no surprise that he was being linked with that job, other than the fact that he already has a job, and now has obviously secured his position with a new contract because of presumably the links with Bristol City have probably spooked Lincoln into thinking, hang on, we better get our act together here and make sure we get him nailed down for a good few years. But yeah, so it was no surprise to see him linked with that job, and I think the next step for him is obviously the Championship, whether it's with Lincoln or another club. You can't imagine Michael Appleton, given the way that the job has gone so far at Lincoln, you can't imagine him being stuck in League One for too much longer.
And do you think he'll be wary of any Championship clubs come calling because of what we spoke about that happened earlier in his career? Do you think he'll, if it comes to making that decision, do you think he's likely to stick with Lincoln because of being hurt, I guess, in the past?
I think one of the main things for Appleton is development. As long as he's got time stretching out in front of him to be able to develop players, develop his own infrastructure, develop the way he wants to do the job. Because, like I say, he knows his own mind. He's got a very clear picture about what he wants to do in the future. And so long as he's got that promise of time, then I think that's one of the biggest concerns. So you talk about the Bristol City job. The very first thing he would have wanted is a promise of more than just an interim role till the end of the season, which, it might be a formality that Nigel Pearson continues way beyond this season, but there is Bristol City have just gone interim as the title for now. And, we'll see in the summer. That wouldn't have suited Appleton. They'd have had to go all out for a manager like Michael Appleton in order for him to commit and move away from Lincoln. So I think in that sense, if a Championship club was to come calling in the future, it'd have to be with a serious long-term plan in place of how he would fit in. Otherwise, we're looking now at a Lincoln side that could be in the Championship, and he's already 1 year into a plan that's going along really well.
And I guess by giving him a 4-year contract as well, that's not a 1 year rolling. It's not, it's not a short term, is it? That's saying we're nailing you down. You do what you want now. We're right behind you, because he's talked already about that Lincoln is still in the early stages of the master plan. I think he said the master plan 3 or 4 times in the last couple of weeks. So clearly, like you say, he's working to a blueprint. He knows exactly what he wants. And he's also sort of said, we're progressing, we're getting better and better, but we're still way off. So clearly, Mike, as you say, a real planner and someone who needs that guarantee that he's not going to be booted out halfway through his master plan.
Yeah, I think like everything that's happened since Bank has happened so fast as well. I think that Appleton has said very early in the season, when they were hitting the top 6 after just 5 or 10 games, he was already saying this is ahead of schedule. I never anticipated this season that we'd be hitting these standards so soon. But I think he works. There's real clarity to the information he provides, and one of the main sticking points for a manager of his type and the type of logic that he works with is that it can take a little while to land with players. But I'm guessing his recruitment has been really clever, and that the players that he's recruited are intelligent players, because that information seems to be landing very quickly. They know what's being asked of them, and they're going out and executing most of what's being asked of them very, very, very quickly. And it's been a quick turnaround, because the players he bombed out last season, basically Danny Cowley players, and he's completely replaced the squad from top to bottom. You expect it's going to take time for that to gel, and in the first season, they're just straight out of the traps, and they're in that automatic promotion race and looking good value for it all the way so far.
Yeah, because a lot of players, if you look at the ins and outs of Lincoln, a lot of the outs were in their 30s, a lot of the ins are barely in their 20s. So clearly he's a man who develops, and I guess younger players are food and drink to him.
Yeah. I mean, he came in for Danny Cowley, and he basically, it didn't take long for him to make clear what he was going to do. He was calling out senior players very, very early in his tenure. For any defeat, he was calling out the senior players, and he can be quite brutal in his post-match interviews, in terms of how honest and how, he wants to, he will just name check players and call players out and tell, that they're not doing enough. And it was clear that he was drawing a line in the sand with the senior players that your days are numbered. You need to start looking for new clubs. And it was quite clear early on. And like you say, he's replaced them with a lot of younger players. And this is kind of following his modus operandi at Oxford. And yeah, I think it's something he's really keen on, is to develop young talent. And you say, the age of the players that he got rid of and the ages of the players he brought in, I wonder how much it's got to do with his own playing career and the fact that his career ended early, that he seems to have this almost obsession with developing players in their early 20s at the expense of senior pros. He's got no time for senior pros whose careers are developed. He wants to develop players who, he never fulfilled his dream as a senior pro. And he wants to make sure that everything that's in place for them younger players at that age, I think, whether it's coincidence or not, his career ended at 27. Nearly every player he's worked with as a manager has been under 27 when he's been doing a job on his terms. And virtually every player over 27 has kind of been sort of shown the door as, not what he's after. And I think he's gone on record of saying that, some of the ideas he tries to put across, it's kind of hard to teach an old dog new tricks kind of thing. The younger players are more receptive to what he's asking of them. So that's probably part of it as well. But I just wonder if it's the thing about his career finishing early and working with a certain, he remembers those years. He's got experience of those years up until injury struck tragically for him. And every player, all the best work he does is with players of that age bracket.
So a lot of younger players in the squad, as you say, and I think they've got the lowest average age in League One at the moment. Does that mean then that this promotion race that they find themselves in, they need to hold their nerve now? Lost, of course, on Saturday against Plymouth, but that could be put down to a blip. younger players in the squad without those senior pros to sort of haul them through and say, right, we've been in this situation before, this is how we handle it. Could that be problematic, do you think, in Lincoln's bid to reach the championship?
It could be. Yeah, I mean, because it's a year early as well, we'll only find out when they're in that position. What I would say is that all the systems that Appleton's got in place, the infrastructure behind the scenes, the focus on development, it will always be forward thinking. I don't think he'll allow them to get too much inside their own heads. You know, they've got very specific procedures in place for the players to go away and study themselves, study their own performance. I think Appleton's very big on this, is having a good sports science team, a good analytics team. Every need that any player, I think the first thing any player has to have before they play for Appleton is this thirst for development and knowledge and things that they don't already possess. And literally on a daily basis, they're going into training, and then after training, they're studying their own performance. And it's almost like there's a lot of classroom type, teaching and coaching involved in the way he goes about the job. I think he'll just keep his players so focused on that they won't really get much time to think about. And I'm sure he's got psychologists or backroom staff that take care of that side of things as well, because it is literally a no stone unturned in terms of trying to get the data and the knowledge that's required behind the scenes. So I think he'll have most of this catered for, but it's only in the heat of battle that we'll tell. I'm sure there will be some performances where their age will show a little bit, and the fact that they're probably a year ahead of schedule. But for the most part, I think Appleton will manage it. He's a very, very matter-of-fact kind of guy. I don't think he does emotions and feelings, and I don't think there's certainly no emotion fed from him that sort of transmits itself to the players and makes them nervous. He'd just be straight down the line with his players all the time in a very matter-of-fact way.
Yeah, I read an account actually by someone, it was a while back, someone who worked at Oxford during his time there. And he said that Michael Appleton was always a pleasure to deal with, if not quite difficult to get information out of. So clearly, like you say, matter of fact, says what's needed to be said, but doesn't, unlike Keith Hill, who we talked about last week on the podcast, doesn't kind of go around the point, doesn't dress things up, doesn't give you 12 minutes of philosophy at the end of a match. He's very on point, isn't he? Yeah,
very much so. Yeah, very to the point. And yeah, I think this is the thing about information and instruction. And I think it's very helpful in this particular season as well, because there's so many quick turnarounds and so little time on the training ground. It's just recovery prep between every single game. I think managers who can get across their ideas and principles with just a few words in the classroom are possibly better equipped right now in the way things are at the moment, the managers who need training ground time and need to drill their players. And I guess what, reading into the comments that you refer to is that, I think Appleton's very good at just getting to the point and saying in 5 words what other managers might take 5 minutes to say. I think he thinks it through and breaks, any point he wants to make. He just kind of distills it down into its most logical form and then delivers the sound bite as opposed to everything else that all the thinking that goes into it. It's kind of a really clean sliced sort of information that he provides.
And he never seems to get too up and he never seems to get too down either, does he? He always seems to be on a fairly even keel. And just kind of thinking ahead, obviously Lincoln will be hoping for automatic promotion this season, Mike, but should they find themselves in the end of season playoffs, that is surely a decent way to manage a club, isn't it? With 2, possibly 3 really, really important games ahead. It's just to stay calm, keep the emotions out of it, and keep your players' minds in the game.
Yeah, well, he's got a fantastic FA Cup record as well, so knockout football seems to suit him. And this is quite interesting, really, because we're talking about him being a development manager. And when you think about development managers, you're normally talking about a philosophy and a process. And I'm not saying that Michael Appleton is not a philosophy man, he's not a process man, because he clearly is. He brings, outside, but he's very outcome focused as well. He's, he will make compromises, I believe, to get results. He wants things done a certain way, and it's always for the players' development in mind. And he wants players that can think for themselves on the pitch, can see the patterns of a game playing out in front of them, and have the intelligence to be able to read the game and play the game that's in front of them. But I think, you look at his FA Cup record and you look at his knockout record in general, I think he's very outcome focused, and he's very, he wants to get to the heart of a problem and get the right, not necessarily the right result, but yeah, he is. It's about outcomes is first and foremost. So you take the season, for example, Lincoln are a year ahead of schedule. They're in a promotion race they weren't expected to be in. And he's not shied away from that. He's not turned around and said, well, let's manage expectations here. This is a year ahead of schedule. Let's take the pressure off it. He's like, no, we've got an opportunity now that we never, we can't pass this up. It's there in front of us, and it's probably there in front of us for a reason. We've got to go and take this opportunity while it's there. And it was notable, how keen he was to keep everybody distanced and make sure that they didn't get any COVID issues in January. He wanted to keep them fixtures ticking over. He didn't want a backlog of fixtures. He wanted a potential to open up a gap at the top of the table. And, he was really, really keen that this was a real opportunity in front of them, and they had to go and seize it. And, this is what I'm saying, is a lot of development managers, a lot of philosophy managers would maybe just try to cool and dampen those expectations a little bit. And Appleton's having none of it. It's like, no, we're here now. This is what's in front of us, and we've got to go and seize it. We've got to go and take the opportunity that's there. This kind of, it's an interesting sort of balance to him that he's got these two sides. He's deliberately pushing himself to be development and process focused, but I think deep down inside his own mind, he very much wants to get straight to the heart of an outcome and get the results he needs.
This is possibly a bit of a wider question, Mike, but do you think it's a good thing to be a year ahead of schedule in Lincoln's case? Because obviously, it's nice to be ahead. I understand that, and it's great for Lincoln to find themselves in that position. But the gap between League One and the Championship seems to be widening every single year. So if you're a year ahead of schedule and you manage to get promoted, do you think that you could be fully prepared for life in the Championship? Do you think that it's just going to be a one-season affair? Whereas if you are bang on schedule and Michael Appleton is planning for this outcome, then will that not give them a greater chance of survival?
I think that Appleton will back himself to keep any team in the Championship if he's got the job on his terms and he can do the recruitment he wants to do. I think recruitment's a big thing for him, and I think he thinks long and hard about his recruitment because he kind of narrowed down his idea of what an Appleton player is. Straight away, you're getting rid of a lot of high salary players, high transfer fee players. If you're not buying anybody over 27, you're just keeping it strictly to, development players that are barely out of the under-23s league. Then basically you're shopping in it's a smaller market to understand. And I think he does his homework on that particular market. And I think he'll back himself to get any players next summer that are ready for the Championship. This is someone who spent a few years behind the scenes at Leicester as a Premier League operation. So, he could have been taking managers' jobs then. I think he wanted to understand exactly what went on at a Premier League club from top to bottom. So even on a smaller budget, he could replicate it straight into League One. And we're seeing, I believe, effectively behind the scenes, Lincoln are almost being run like a Premier League club now in terms of, if they've not necessarily got the facilities, but they're in terms of everything that's in place, the support network, I think it's all there. And I think Appleton would back himself in the Championship with any club, as long as he can do the recruitment he wants to do. I think he'd back himself to get players that are good enough for that level. I
guess if he's improving players as well, it's also those players are going to be 1 year better, I guess, as well, because there's some real talented players at Lincoln already.
It's win-win. It's win-win. And, we talk about, say, let's take George Grant, for example. Everybody knew that George Grant was a talent. He inherited George Grant and, straight away thought, he's my sort of player. We're talking about possibly the best player in League One now. Certainly one of the top 5 players, midfielders. And he'll be ready for the Championship. And, he's been taken to the Championship already and been given a chance in the Championship and not quite bedded down there. But he will be ready for the Championship next season under Appleton. And that's the thing, is you're not only buying players with high potential at that age, possibly Lincoln could be selling players for big money in a few years that they're getting the kind of, he knows his place in the market, Appleton, where he can cherry pick the very best of talent if he just concentrates on that market, get them at just the right price before they blossom. But he knows how to do all the work in between to get them from that stage of, an affordable price for Lincoln City to suddenly what's potentially a 20, 30 million pound player. And he knows the steps in between. So he's in a very niche market that he seems to understand from top to bottom. And I think he'll back himself 100% in the Championship. Even if the team that gets them there this year is a year early, then some might move on. Some will have developed to be a year in their development under Appleton, so they'll be ready for the Championship. And he'll recruit what he needs to fill in the gaps.
And my next question was going to be, what is Appleton's level? How far can he go? But that last answer that you gave me kind of suggests that Championship is absolutely okay, possibly even further.
Yeah, I'd say so. I think definitely Championship without a question. I guess it depends on what offers and where, because it's hard now to see Lincoln City in the Premier League. Not even they'll finish in the top 6 of League One this season, and they'll be hoping for automatic as things stand right now. So we can't get too far ahead of ourselves, but it's hard to imagine Lincoln in the Premier League. Lincoln City with Michael Appleton in charge in the Championship, I think, would be fine. And I compare this to Wycombe Wanderers under Gareth Ainsworth and Paul Warne at Rotherham. I think Lincoln will be Championship ready. And that's no disrespect to Warne or Ainsworth. I just think that the model that Appleton's working to is more geared up to be ready for the Championship. It's not just living a dream to get there. I think he's already knows his steps ahead. And because it's very recruitment based, very logical based, and very sort of, he's got this Premier League background. He knows the steps in between and how it works, and all the systems you have to have in place. I just think that they'd be potentially another level compared to what we've seen with Rotherham and Wycombe. But I wouldn't imagine Lincoln. It's who comes in for Appleton, and Premier League clubs. Are they necessarily, we might have seen Bournemouth, for example, in recent years that have looked to recruit around 23 years old, players that have Premier League calibre, but not quite there yet. They've spent a lot of big money for those players, though. Maybe a club like that would take Appleton to the Premier League, but I can't see any of the big Premier League clubs wanting to follow this model. It's just all about the money there and making sure that you stay in that league every season. To some, it might be seen a little bit too risky. So it's just how far can he take Lincoln for now? And I think he could make Lincoln a sustainable Championship club. 4 years, it'd be interesting to see because I think there's a lot more potential there.
And finally, on Michael Appleton, the fans haven't obviously been at Sincil Bank. They've been watching the games on iFollow and clearly enjoying the football. Not just the fact that he's working with these exciting young players, but the Cowley brothers had great success there, but their football was often criticised, and the fans kind of, took it because the success and the rise up the divisions was worth it. But now this is a completely different brand of football that Appleton is serving up, and that is testament to, I guess, the development of the young players. But he must have quite a lot tactically as well to improve the way they've been going about their business, particularly in the final third.
Yeah, I think he's very shrewd. And I think he can outthink managers. There's not many managers that can think steps ahead. Lots of managers, lots of different qualities. I think one of Appleton's biggest qualities is being able to think steps ahead and have, first of all, he gets players to be able to think for themselves. So it's not just his information that makes the difference on a day. He's making players more intelligent and be able to think for themselves on the pitch. But he's also liable to think moves ahead that if we do this, then they might do this, in which case we do this. And, it's all about seeing spaces and patterns on the pitch and players understanding when to make runs, how to time runs, all of those kinds of things. And he's able to quickly, he even referred back to the Marcelo Bielsa podcast about Bielsa loves chaos. I wouldn't say Appleton loves chaos, but I think he can make sense of chaos on a football pitch a lot more than other managers. That's why he doesn't like, sometimes it could be knocking the ball around at 100 miles an hour without necessarily going anywhere in particular. But he can make sense of that and then identify the spaces where a team can be exposed on the pitch. You know, you read between the lines of things he says in interviews. And I think, I just think that's possibly one of his biggest edges. It's like an innovative mind on the tactical level of being able to see the patterns of a game.
If you want to use everything that Mike has said about Michael Appleton to your advantage when it comes to betting, and anyone who's backed Lincoln regularly this season will be sitting on a nice profit, then Mike, there is a free case study awaiting.
Yeah, I've been using manager profiling since lockdown to, for betting circumstances as a strategy, really. Just profiling managers and the way that they go about the jobs in order, to identify particular days when they're worth backing or opposing. Because, a lot of stuff nowadays, data science is all about team strength and stuff like that. So I found this really profitable to come at it kind of through the side door and understand the game in different ways like this. So, it's really good. So there's a case study, there's a video, if you just opt in on the case study page and you get sent a free video explaining how it all works.